Imagine for a moment that your mind is not a cage of limits, but a vast horizon waiting to be explored. Beneath the surface of every thought you've ever had, there lies a hidden ocean of possibility, untouched, unseen, but alive with quiet, power. You've only glimpsed fragments of it in moments of inspiration, when creativity pours like a river, or when time seems to dissolve as you lose yourself in something you love. But what if I told you that the potential of your brain stretches far beyond those fleeting sparks? That there are entire landscapes within you, locked doors that hold not just intelligence, but deeper intuition, creativity, empathy, and an almost cosmic awareness. This journey is not about forcing the brain to be something it is not. It is about rediscovering what it has always been capable of. Like a seed holding the blueprint for a towering tree, your brain carries dormant patterns, waiting to awaken when given the right conditions. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift into this story, we will travel together through the mysterious corridors of the human mind. We will explore not only the science that reveals its power, but the poetic truths that whisper through its silence. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more of yourself, the you that has been waiting patiently in the shadows, ready to step into the light. So let us begin. Beneath the noise of daily life, beneath the constant chatter of thoughts that flicker across your consciousness like restless birds, there lies a silence. This silence is not empty. It is vast, fertile, and alive. It is the place where your brain stores its hidden reservoirs, those untapped capacities that rarely surface in ordinary moments. Imagine standing before a lake at dawn, the surface, still, the depths unknown. That lake is your mind. You may see only the reflection of the sky above, but beneath it, entire worlds of possibility are stirring. Every human brain is a paradox. On the one hand, it feels limited, confined by habits, fears, and a ceaseless loop of routines. On the other hand, neuroscience reveals it as the most extraordinary creation of nature. 100 billion neurons, each branching into connections that far outnumber the stars in the Milky Way. And yet, most of those connections lie dormant, unused, waiting like sleeping giants to be awakened. You do not need to add anything foreign to yourself to reach them. You do not need to become someone else. You need only learn how to listen to the silence, how to trust the stillness that opens doors to hidden potential. This is not the kind of potential measured by grades, promotions, or applause. It is deeper, older, almost mystical. It is the potential that allows a person to sense connections others overlook, to hear music in silence, to feel the pulse of empathy so strongly it reshapes the world around them. When you touch this potential, it feels less like discovering something new and more like remembering something ancient, something you were always meant to know. Consider the times in your life when you surprised yourself. Maybe it was a crisis, where you suddenly found a strength you didn't know you had. Maybe it was a creative act, where words, images, or solutions seemed to flow through you, almost as if borrowed from a higher source. In those moments, your brain opened the door to its hidden reservoirs. The capacity was always there. It simply revealed itself when circumstance demanded it. The great secret is that you do not need to wait for crises or chance. You can learn to enter that state intentionally, to walk into the deeper chambers of your own mind as naturally as breathing. Unlocking your brain's full potential begins with acknowledging that you are not yet living at the edges of who you could be. That thought is not meant to create pressure, but possibility. Imagine that every limitation you feel is only a surface layer, a thin crust that conceals molten creativity and energy beneath. To break through is not to destroy yourself, but to allow yourself to lift the veil, to quiet the noise, to let the silence beneath thoughts rise like a tide, carrying you into dimensions of self you have not yet touched. And so, as we begin this journey, I invite you to imagine your mind not as a closed box, but as an infinite landscape. The mountains have yet to be climbed, the rivers have yet to be crossed, the seeds have yet to bloom. Tonight, We will wander into those untouched places step by step and remind the brain of what it was always capable of becoming. When you close your eyes, your brain does not stop working. In fact, it begins to reveal its deeper rhythms. Neural circuits that lie silent in the daylight of routine begin to hum with quiet electricity. These are the dormant pathways, roads less traveled within your own mind. Most of them are never used because daily life keeps you marching down the same well-trodden streets of thought. But every time you imagine, every time you dream, every time you let your mind wander beyond the ordinary, you brush against these hidden roots. Think of a forest that has been walked through only along a narrow trail. The ground outside that trail is rich, wild, unexplored. It carries plants no one has catalogued, animals no one has observed, springs of water no one has tasted. That forest is your brain. You live along a single path because it is safe and familiar, but outside of it are endless possibilities. The forest has been waiting, quietly, for you to take the first step beyond the beaten road. Science has a word for this: neuroplasticity. It means that your brain is not fixed. It is a living structure, sculpted by your experiences, your habits, and your attention. Every time you learn something new, every time you allow yourself to break a pattern, the brain rewires itself. Neurons reach out like curious vines, forming new connections, strengthening bridges where none existed before. Each connection is a whisper of potential becoming real. The more you repeat, the stronger those pathways grow, until what was once a fragile thread becomes a road and then a highway. But here is the paradox. The same process that allows you to create new possibilities can also keep you trapped in old ones. If you repeat fear, fear grows stronger. If you repeat doubt, doubt takes root. The brain does not judge. It simply builds what you feed it. To unlock your full potential, you must first become aware of what you have been rehearsing. What are the stories you tell yourself over and over? What thoughts are you planting each day, often without noticing? These silent repetitions are what shape the architecture of your mind. When you realize this, you begin to see the dormant pathways not as abstract science, but as choices. You hold, within you, the ability to guide your brain into expansion. Instead of reinforcing the same narrow trails, you can venture into new clearings, new meadows, new skies. Each time you choose curiosity over fear, creativity over apathy, presence over distraction, you water the seeds of untapped potential. Slowly, almost invisibly, the brain begins to change. And something miraculous happens when it does. Not only do you think differently, you feel differently. Your inner landscape becomes more open, more alive. Ideas come not as forced effort, but as gifts. Emotions rise not as storms, but as tides you can ride. Your sense of self begins to stretch beyond the familiar boundaries, as if the mind itself were rediscovering its wings. Dormant pathways are not dead, they are waiting. They echo with possibilities, murmuring beneath the surface of your thoughts. To unlock your brain's potential is to listen to those echoes, to let them guide you into places you did not know you could reach. And as you walk further into that forest, you discover that the wilderness of the mind is not frightening. It is home. It is where your truest self has been patiently waiting all along. Deep inside you, the brain speaks a language you have almost forgotten. It is not the language of words or even of conscious thought. It is the language of rhythm, of patterns, of subtle currents flowing just beneath awareness. Every cell in your body listens to this language, responding without your command. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your emotions, all tuned to signals you rarely stop to hear. In childhood, you spoke this language fluently. Before you had words, you learned the world through instinct, through sensation, through the raw electricity of being alive. You knew how to learn without effort, how to explore without fear, how to connect without hesitation. Your brain was a canvas painted with curiosity, open to anything, capable of forming new pathways at lightning speed. But as the years passed, You began to favor words, rules, categories, and routines. The deeper rhythms faded into background noise, like a song playing in another room. Yet the song is still there. It hums in your dreams, in the sudden flashes of intuition, in the unexplainable moments when you just know something without reason. It whispers in the calm after meditation, in the clarity of a walk beneath the stars, in the silence between heartbeats. This is the brain's forgotten language, the way it speaks when it is free from the weight of constant chatter. Modern science, for all its brilliance, has only begun to catch up to this truth. Neuroscientists can now measure how certain brainwaves, alpha, theta, gamma, emerge when the mind enters states of flow, creativity, or deep rest. These waves are not random. They are the grammar of the forgotten language. They allow the brain to integrate, to connect distant regions, to unlock capacities that remain dormant in ordinary waking life. You feel them when time dissolves and hours pass like minutes. You feel them when an idea arrives fully formed, as if whispered by something larger than yourself. But here lies the secret. You can learn to hear this language again, not by forcing, but by softening, by giving the mind permission to return to the states it once knew effortlessly, to sit in stillness without demanding answers, to create without worrying about perfection, to listen without planning your reply. Each of these is a practice in reawakening the brain's original fluency. When you begin to tune into this forgotten language, the world itself changes. Ordinary things take on a glow. A tree is no longer just a tree. It is a cathedral of branches, a living poem rooted in silence. A moment of connection with another person is no longer casual. It becomes an exchange of unseen energy, shaping both of you in ways words cannot describe. Your brain, in learning to speak its ancient tongue again, awakens not only its own potential, but your sense of being woven into something vast. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not about adding more noise, more effort, more pressure. It is about remembering. Remembering the rhythms that once carried you with ease. Remembering the language that still pulses through every cell of your being. And when you remember, you find that the mind was never small. It was only waiting for you to listen deeply enough to hear its song again. There exists a mysterious threshold in the human mind, a doorway between effort and effortlessness, between trying and becoming. It is called flow. You may have touched it without even realizing. Those moments when everything aligns, when action feels smooth, when time seems to disappear and you feel as though something greater is moving through you. Athletes know it. Musicians live for it. Artists surrender to it. But flow is not reserved for the gifted few. It is a natural state of the brain, accessible to anyone who dares to step through its threshold. Flow is not magic, though it feels that way. Neuroscience shows that in flow states, the brain shifts into a unique mode. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your mind that doubts, judges, and second guesses, quietly steps aside. In its silence, other regions awaken. Creativity surges. Pattern recognition sharpens. Memory and intuition weave together seamlessly. Chemicals like dopamine and endorphins wash through the brain, sharpening focus, amplifying joy, and binding you fully to the present moment. In flow, you are no longer split between past and future. You are here, now, alive in a way that feels limitless. But what is the doorway? How does one cross into flow? It begins with attention. When you become so immersed in what you are doing that the edges between yourself and the task blur, you inch closer to the threshold. The activity must challenge you. Not too easy, not too impossible, but just enough to demand your whole self. Too little challenge, and you grow bored. Too much, and you collapse into frustration. But in the delicate balance between the two, the door opens. And once you step through, effort melts into grace. Flow teaches us something profound about unlocking potential. The brain's greatest powers emerge not when we push harder, but when we surrender more deeply. You cannot force flow. You can only invite it. You prepare the ground by focusing, by engaging fully, by letting go of distractions. Then the brain, like a river freed from a dam, begins to carry you. It is in flow that you glimpse what your mind is truly capable of. Creativity that feels infinite, endurance that defies logic, clarity that feels like it belongs to another world. Think back to a time when you were so absorbed in something that hours vanished. That was flow whispering its secret. It was showing you that the limits you normally feel are not the limits of your brain, but the limits of your attention. To unlock your full potential is to learn how to return to that threshold again and again until the state of flow is not a rare accident, but a familiar friend. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of flow is this: it reveals that unlocking potential is not about becoming more than human. It is about becoming fully human. The brain was built for this harmony, for this alignment. It longs to remind you of what life feels like when you live not from fragmentation, but from wholeness. At the threshold of flow, you are not separate from your task, not separate from time, not separate from life itself. You are part of the current, carried effortlessly toward your own hidden depths. Most of what your brain does, you never see. Beneath the fragile spotlight of conscious thought lies a vast machinery, humming in silence. This hidden layer is the subconscious, the place where memories, instincts, emotions, and unseen patterns are woven together. Like gatekeepers standing watch, your subconscious determines what enters awareness, what remains buried, and what shapes your choices without ever asking permission. Imagine your conscious mind as a small island, and your subconscious as the ocean that surrounds it. On the island, you can see the trees, the paths, the fires you light. But beneath the surface, the ocean is teeming with life, currents pulling, creatures stirring, landscapes shifting in darkness. You may think you are steering the boat of your life, but often it is the tides of the subconscious carrying you towards shores you cannot yet see. The subconscious is not your enemy. In fact, it is the reason you survive. It regulates your breathing, keeps your heart beating, remembers how to walk, how to speak, how to read these very words. It takes the burden of repetition so your conscious mind can focus elsewhere. But here is the secret. It is also where potential hides. Many of the abilities you long for, confidence, creativity, clarity, are not things you must build from scratch. They are already seeded in your subconscious, waiting for you to awaken them. Dreams are one of the clearest doorways into this hidden realm. Have you ever woken from a dream that felt more vivid than waking life, filled with symbols you cannot explain, emotions that linger for hours? That is your subconscious speaking in its native tongue, images, metaphors, archetypes. It does not speak in logic, but in story. And if you learn to listen, to decode its whispers, it will begin to show you the maps of your own potential. Science calls this implicit memory or automatic processing. Poets call it the soul's language. Whatever name you choose, the truth is this: your subconscious is the soil in which new possibilities take root. Every thought you feed it is a seed. Every belief you repeat is water. Every emotion you dwell in is sunlight or shadow. Over time, these seeds grow into forests of identity, shaping who you think you are and what you think you can do. To unlock your brain's full potential, you must befriend these gatekeepers. You must step gently into the subconscious, not as a conqueror, but as a listener. Practices like meditation, visualization, hypnosis, even journaling, are ways of speaking directly to this hidden layer. When you enter stillness, when you paint images in your mind, when you tell yourself new stories, the subconscious listens. It begins to rearrange itself, opening doors that were once locked, pathways that once seemed unreachable. And there is something else, something almost mystical. The subconscious is deeply connected to intuition. That sudden inner knowing, the instinct that warns or guides you, often comes from subconscious processing. It has gathered fragments your conscious mind missed, stitched them together, and delivered them as a single flash of insight. Trusting this is not irrational. It is recognizing that the brain holds wisdom beyond the spotlight of awareness. The gatekeepers of the subconscious are not here to hold you back. They are here to protect and guide you. But they will only open when you learn their language. And when they do, you will find that your potential has never been locked outside of you. It has always been waiting within, humming quietly beneath the waves, asking you only to dive deep enough to hear. Every thought you've ever had, every face you've ever seen, every story whispered into your ears, all of it lives somewhere inside you. The brain is a cathedral of memory, a structure so intricate that no architect could ever recreate its design. And yet, for most of your life, you wander its halls blindly, remembering fragments here and there, while whole chambers of experience remain hidden behind locked doors. Memory is not a single shelf where moments are neatly stored. It is a living network, a web of connections sparking across billions of neurons. When you recall something, you are not pulling it from a box, you are recreating it, lighting up the pathways that once carried the experience. And in this act of remembering, the memory itself can change, shift, reshape itself. Your brain is both the archive and the artist, preserving and reinventing at the same time. But here is the marvel. Within these networks lie the seeds of untapped potential. Memory is not just about the past, it is the raw material for your future. Every skill you learn, every insight you carry, is stored in patterns your brain can weave together in endless new ways. Creativity itself is often nothing more than memory rearranged, old fragments forming new mosaics. The brain, when allowed to wander, can connect memories from different times, different senses, different emotions, and in doing so, birth something that feels entirely new. Think of the great inventors, artists, scientists. They did not summon ideas from nowhere. They drew upon the architecture of memory, letting fragments collide in ways others had overlooked. A child's toy becomes the seed of an invention. A dream merges with a lecture to inspire a theory. A song from youth stirs into a painting decades later. Memory is not static, it is potential waiting to be recombined. Yet memory can also bind us. The brain remembers pain as vividly as joy, fear as strongly as love. These emotional imprints can become walls within the cathedral, closing doors to growth. A single moment of failure may echo louder than 100 moments of success. A wound may replay itself like a film reel, convincing you that the past is destiny. But even here lies hidden power. The brain is capable of rewriting its own scripts. Through conscious reflection, reframing, and even forgiveness, memories can be recoded. The architecture shifts, the walls open, the cathedral grows brighter. Unlocking your brain's full potential means learning to work with memory, not as a static archive, but as a living canvas. Meditation can help strengthen recall. Visualization can rewire associations. Journaling can anchor fleeting thoughts before they vanish into the fog. And perhaps most importantly, compassion toward yourself can reshape how the brain stores and replays your story. Imagine walking into your inner cathedral with a lantern. You see not only the worn corridors of familiar memories, but staircases you've never climbed, doors you've never opened, stained glass glowing with scenes you've never fully noticed. This is your inheritance, the architecture of a mind that holds far more than you have ever allowed yourself to explore. The past does not imprison you. It provides you with infinite building blocks. And the moment you begin to use them consciously, your brain stops being a silent archive and becomes a palace of possibility. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a place you have never been. Perhaps a forest under alien skies, where the leaves shimmer with colors no human eye has ever seen. Perhaps a city floating above the clouds, its towers glowing with quiet light. The moment you imagine it, your brain creates it. Not as a fantasy, but as a lived experience inside the mind. Imagination is not pretend, it is rehearsal. It is creation. It is one of the most powerful tools hidden in the brain's depths. Neuroscience has shown that when you vividly imagine an action, the brain activates almost the same circuits as when you physically perform it. A pianist can practice silently, away from the instrument, and still strengthen the neural pathways of music. An athlete can visualize a routine in the mind, and the body learns as though it has already moved. The brain cannot always tell the difference between what is imagined and what is real, and in this lies extraordinary potential. Imagination is the blueprint of possibility. Every invention, every discovery, every work of art began in the invisible space of thought before it touched the material world. The airplane was once an impossible dream. The telescope was once just a vision of extending the eye. Even the device you are listening to this on was once only an idea flickering in someone's mind. To imagine is to build the future before it exists. But imagination is not only outward, it is inward too. You can imagine yourself calmer, stronger, more open, more alive. And when you do, the brain begins to align with that image. Over time, those imagined versions of yourself carve new pathways, until the imagined self and the lived self become one. This is why visualization has been used by sages, athletes, and healers across centuries. It is not wishful thinking. It is the conscious shaping of the mind's architecture. There is also a softer, more intimate dimension of imagination. It is the ability to step into another's perspective, to feel what they feel, to see through their eyes. This is empathy, and it is powered by the same circuitry that allows us to imagine. When you picture yourself in someone else's story, your brain lights up as though you are living it. This is why stories move us, why art touches us, why compassion is even possible. Imagination is the bridge between your mind and the infinite minds around you. And yet, imagination can be a double-edged sword. Just as it can build futures of wonder, it can also build prisons of fear. Anxiety, after all, is imagination turned against us. Visions of what might go wrong rehearsed so vividly that the body reacts as if danger were real. To unlock your brain's potential is to reclaim imagination, to guide it consciously rather than letting it spiral into unconscious fears. When you remember that imagination is power, you begin to see that your inner world is not a distraction from life, but the very soil from which life grows. Every time you daydream, every time you let your mind wander, you are rehearsing tomorrow. You are sketching the outlines of who you might become. And when you choose those sketches with awareness, with wonder, with courage, with love, you discover that the mind is not limited by the present moment. It is a bridge to infinity. Inside your skull, there is no silence. Even when you sleep, even when you sit in stillness, the brain is a symphony unfolding. Neurons fire in rhythms, like instruments in an orchestra, some rapid and sharp, others deep and slow. Together, they create the music of thought, emotion, and awareness. You may not hear it as sound, but you feel its effects every moment of your life. The brain is not only a machine, it is a composer, conducting its own living symphony. Science measures these rhythms as brain waves: beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma. Each has its tempo, each carries its role. Beta is the quick, sharp rhythm of problem solving and alertness. Alpha is the gentle flow of calm focus, the sound of daydreaming and creativity. Theta is the dreamlike hum of meditation and intuition. Delta is the slow heartbeat of deep sleep and restoration. And gamma, the rare, high-frequency current, is the spark of insight, the resonance of unity across the brain's vast networks. Together, these waves weave your reality. But here is the mystery. Few people ever learn to conduct their own inner orchestra. Instead, they live caught in one rhythm, most often the restless, fast-paced beta waves of daily stress. Imagine an orchestra where only the drums play endlessly without pause. That is how many of us experience the brain, not as a balanced symphony, but as a single, relentless beat. The result is exhaustion, anxiety, disconnection from the deeper layers of potential. Yet the brain longs to return to balance. With simple practices, breathing deeply, meditating, focusing on music, or even watching the stars, you invite the slower, richer rhythms to rise. Alpha flows in, soothing and opening space for imagination. Theta hums gently, unlocking doors to intuition and memory. Delta descends, washing the brain in healing rest. And sometimes, when all align, Gamma flickers like lightning, connecting the entire brain in a single unified chord. This is why musicians speak of losing themselves in music, why monks describe bliss in silence, why athletes describe the zone as transcendent. They are not only performing an activity, they are aligning their inner orchestra, stepping into the hidden symphony of the brain. In these moments, the mind feels limitless not because it gains new powers, but because it harmonizes the ones it already holds. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not about forcing more noise, more speed, more power. It is about becoming the conductor of your own inner music. When you learn to guide your rhythms, shifting from alertness to creativity, from focus to rest, you discover that the brain is not your jailer, but your instrument. And when played well, it can carry you to states of awareness, joy, and insight, far beyond anything ordinary life suggests is possible. The symphony is always there, waiting beneath the static. It is not hidden from you. You are hidden from it, lost in the noise of daily life. But the moment you stop, breathe, and listen, you begin to hear it again. The brain's inner music, the sound of your own potential awakening. Every thought you have, every memory, every dream is filtered through your senses. The eyes, the ears, the skin, the tongue, the nose. They are not simply windows to the world, but gates, carefully guarded, deciding what enters your awareness and what does not. And what's more, these gates do not deliver reality as it is. They translate, distort, and color it, handing you not the truth of the universe, but the version your brain believes you can handle. Light pours into your eyes, yet you never see light itself. You see only the interpretation your brain paints upon the canvas of your mind. Sound waves ripple through your ears, yet you do not hear vibration. You hear melody, language, meaning. The senses do not show you the world. They show you the world as your brain chooses to perceive it. This is why two people can look at the same sunset, yet one feels awe while the other feels indifference. The same stimulus, but different perception. It is why a note of music can move one person to tears, yet barely stir another. The doorway is the same, but the brain's translation is unique. In this way, your perception is not a mirror. It is a story being told, moment by moment, crafted by the neural networks within you. But what if you could alter the story? What if you could open wider doorways, see more than the brain ordinarily allows? Science shows us hints that this is possible. Artists, meditators, mystics, and even children often perceive the world with greater vividness than the average adult. Their brains filter less, allowing raw streams of sensory detail to pour in. To them, colors seem richer, sounds sharper, time more fluid. It is as if the ordinary gates of perception have been stretched open, and the mind drinks in more of reality's fullness. Consider synesthesia, a condition where senses cross their wires. Some people see colors when they hear sounds, or taste flavors when they read words. To them, the doorways of perception are not separate, but fused, blending into a multi-dimensional experience of reality. While most of us live with narrow, rigid gates, they wander through vast halls where senses overlap and expand. Your brain holds this potential too. The filters are not permanent. They can be shifted. Through meditation, through deep states of flow, even through simple acts of mindful awareness, you begin to notice more. The details sharpen. The world grows luminous. A flower is no longer just a flower. It is an intricate explosion of shape, color, and fragrance, a universe in miniature. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not about leaving the world behind, but about opening the doorways wider so you may perceive more of what is already here. The extraordinary is hidden in the ordinary, and the key lies in perception. To notice what you once ignored, to see the shimmer between moments, to listen to the silence as deeply as the sound. The doorways of perception are always before you. The question is, will you walk through them or remain standing at the threshold, mistaking shadows for the vastness beyond? Every night, without fail, your brain tells you stories in the dark. You lie still, the world slips away, and suddenly, you are somewhere else, walking down a road that never existed, speaking words you never rehearsed, meeting faces you've never seen yet somehow know. Dreams are not accidents of sleep. They are the secret language of the brain, spoken when the conscious mind finally loosens its grip. The brain is a storyteller, and dreams are its unfiltered poetry. They twist reality, bending time, stitching together fragments of memory with threads of imagination. You may dream of a childhood home filled with people you only met last week. You may find yourself standing on a mountain that dissolves into the sea, only to rise again as a staircase into the sky. None of it makes sense to the waking mind, yet within the dream, it feels undeniable. Why does the brain do this? Because beneath the rigid surface of daily logic lies a vast reservoir of symbols and archetypes, the language of the unconscious. When you dream, your brain speaks not in words, but in imagery, in metaphor, in emotion. A locked door may represent fear, a flying leap may embody freedom, a shadowy figure may hold the weight of suppressed memory. Dreams do not care for reason, they care for truth, but in a form your waking self may not always recognize. Throughout history, humanity has turned to dreams for guidance. Pharaohs sought prophecy in their visions. Ancient shamans saw dreams as doorways to other worlds. Psychologists like Freud and Jung believed dreams were the royal road to the unconscious, holding keys to desires and fears too deep to voice. Whether as omen, therapy, or art, dreams have always been treated as something sacred, a glimpse into the hidden chambers of the mind. But here is the secret. Dreaming is not limited to sleep. Every spark of imagination you feel, every sudden image that crosses your thoughts is a fragment of the same dream language. When you daydream, when you let your mind drift, you dip your toes into the same waters that flood your nights. To unlock your brain's full potential, you must learn to honor this language, not dismiss it as nonsense, but see it as a form of intelligence beyond words. What would happen if you began to listen? If you recorded your dreams each morning, tracing patterns that connect night to night? What if you allowed daydreams to blossom instead of cutting them short? You would begin to see the brain not only as a machine of reason, but as a wellspring of imagery, intuition, and meaning. In this light, dreams are not distractions, they are maps. They reveal the terrains of your inner world, pointing to places of growth, of fear, of possibility. They are the letters your unconscious writes to your waking self. And like all letters, they long to be read. Your brain does not stop speaking when you sleep. It whispers, it paints, it weaves. Unlocking its full potential means learning to read its secret poetry, the language of dreams, the stories you tell yourself when you are brave enough to listen. Beneath every thought you hold, in this moment lies an ocean you cannot see. It is vast, deep, layered with the sediments of your entire life. Every face you have glimpsed in a crowd, every scent carried on the wind, every phrase overheard but forgotten, your brain has kept them. Memory is not a neat archive, but a living ocean, and most of it lies beneath the surface, hidden from your conscious reach. We tend to believe memory is fragile, fleeting, that moments are lost forever once they slip past awareness. But neuroscience whispers something different, that your brain stores far more than you can recall. The tune you cannot name, the word on the tip of your tongue, the half-remembered dream. All of these are proof of a reservoir deeper than conscious thought. They are traces rising from the ocean floor, signals from a world just beyond your reach. Sometimes, without warning, a smell will open a floodgate. The fragrance of pine may return you instantly to childhood winters, snow crunching beneath your boots. A distant melody may summon the echo of a love long past, as if the memory had never left. In such moments, you realize the ocean never lost what you thought was gone. It was simply waiting for the right tide to carry it back. But here is the mystery. Memory is not only about the past. It shapes your present and your future. The way you see the world today is filtered through what you have carried from yesterday. Your preferences, your fears, your sense of possibility, all of it is molded by what the ocean of memory holds. It is not a passive record. It is an active current, steering the ship of who you are becoming. There are, too, memories you never touch consciously, yet they influence you quietly. The body remembers even when the mind does not. The rhythm of walking, the reflex of catching a ball, the warmth of someone's touch. These are stored not in words, but in muscle and sensation. This is implicit memory, the silent architecture of your daily life, the ocean waves that move whether or not you notice them. And deeper still, beneath the personal lies the collective. Some believe memory extends beyond the individual mind, that, in dreams, in symbols, in archetypes, we touch the ocean that belongs to humanity itself. Myths that echo across cultures, fears that all people share, patterns that rise again and again. These suggest a memory older than any one life, a sea where countless streams converge. To unlock your brain's full potential is to learn how to swim in this ocean without drowning, to surface when needed, but also to dive, exploring the hidden reefs and currents of what you already know but have forgotten. By training attention, by practicing recall, by embracing stillness, you can begin to draw more from this hidden reservoir. Memory becomes not only a tool of recollection, but a source of creativity, insight, and wisdom. The ocean of memory is never silent. It calls to you in fragments, in sensations, in sudden floods of recognition. Unlocking it means daring to listen, to dive, to trust that the currents of who you have been are still guiding who you may become. If you could peel back the surface of your skull and gaze within, you would not see thought as you know it. You would see rivers of light, flashing, branching, intertwining, a forest of 100 billion neurons, each one whispering to thousands of others. Your brain is not a single organ, but a city of endless connections, a cosmos of networks forever, changing their architecture in silence. Most of what happens in this city is invisible to you. You are aware only of the narrow street where your conscious mind walks. Yet beyond that street, entire highways blaze with traffic. Emotions rush down winding avenues, reflexes dart through back alleys, and ancient instincts echo through hidden tunnels. The unseen networks hum beneath your awareness, guiding your choices before you even know you've made them. Consider this. When you reach for a glass of water, it is not one simple command from the brain, but thousands of circuits firing in elegant synchrony. Muscles flex, eyes track, balance shifts, grip adjusts, all coordinated with precision, without a single conscious thought. The act feels simple, but the networks behind it are symphonies of computation. Even more astonishing is how these networks reshape themselves. Each moment of learning, each spark of memory weaves new threads through the forest. Synapses strengthen or weaken. Patterns dissolve, new ones emerge. It is as if the city of your brain is constantly under construction, scaffolding rising in some places, while old structures crumble in others. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to rewrite itself, to adapt, to evolve long after childhood has passed. And yet, we notice so little. We think of thought as a single voice in the head, but in truth, it is a chorus of networks, each singing its own part. The conscious voice you hear is only the soloist. The unseen orchestra carries the harmony. When you make a decision, it is not the command of one voice, but the negotiation of countless circuits, a parliament debating in silence. What lies in these networks is potential. New connections are the seeds of creativity, insight, and skill. The brain does not stop weaving until the last breath is drawn. You are not fixed, not static, not doomed to the patterns of yesterday. Even now, as you listen, new synapses are sparking, binding neurons into fresh constellations of possibility. To unlock your brain's full potential, you must learn to trust the unseen, to realize that intelligence is not only in the words you think, but in the background hum of networks constantly shaping who you are. Every time you practice, reflect, or imagine, you are carving new pathways in this forest. Every failure, every success, every dream leaves a trail in the circuitry, a new map for tomorrow. The unseen networks never rest. They are the silent architects of your mind. And when you learn to honor their work, you discover that the brain is not only what you know, it is also everything you are still becoming. If you listen carefully, not to music, not to words, but to the spaces between them, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Beneath the chatter of your mind, beneath the endless stream of planning, remembering, worrying, and narrating, there is a quiet that waits. A silence not of emptiness, but of depth. It is subtle, so easily missed, yet it may be the most powerful. Part of your brain's hidden reservoir. Your thoughts are like ripples on a lake, rising and falling, one after another. But what is the lake itself? It is the awareness beneath them, the silence that holds them all. Most people live on the surface, tossed about by ripple after ripple, believing they are their thoughts. But the truth is gentler. You are not the ripples. You are the lake. And the silence between thoughts is the doorway back to that deeper self. Modern science has begun to glimpse what ancient mystics always intuited, that stillness changes the brain. When meditation quiets the mind, when focus draws thought into a single flame, neural networks shift. The stress circuits dim, creativity blooms, memory strengthens. The brain reorganizes itself as if silence were food it had been starved of. The absence of noise is not a void. It is a nourishment, a recalibration, a return to balance. Think of the great discoveries that arrive not through force of effort, but in sudden flashes. Newton beneath the apple tree, Archimedes in his bath, Einstein in a daydream. The insight did not come from more thinking, but from the pause between thoughts, when the unseen parts of the mind were free to whisper. The silence carried the answer, and the conscious mind was finally quiet enough to hear it. You have felt this too, perhaps in the hush of a forest, when no words are needed. Perhaps just before sleep, when the mind loosens its grip. Perhaps in moments of awe, staring at the night sky until thought itself seems too small to hold the immensity. In those spaces, the silence between thoughts becomes luminous, and you sense something larger than the self you usually inhabit. To unlock your brain's full potential is not always to add more, to cram more knowledge, to chase more speed, to push harder. Sometimes it is to subtract, to return to stillness, to remember the quiet hum beneath the noise. The silence between thoughts is not empty. It is the very ground where insight grows, where creativity breathes, where peace settles. And in that silence, you discover a truth your thoughts alone could never reveal, that you are more than your stories, more than your fears, more than the endless narration of your mind. You are the awareness that watches it all. You are the space between, beneath, the stage of your conscious mind, where thoughts speak in sentences and logic marches in lines. There is an architect at work. You rarely see it, yet it shapes everything. This is your subconscious, the hidden planner, the quiet builder, the silent hand guiding choices you think are your own. The subconscious never sleeps. While your conscious mind tires, hesitates, forgets, the subconscious moves tirelessly, gathering, connecting, weaving. It notices patterns your eyes gloss over. It remembers details you dismiss. It links experiences into meaning before you've had time to reflect. It is why you sometimes wake with a solution to a problem that seemed impossible the night before. While you rested, the architect was drafting designs in the dark. Think of the times you've driven home without recalling each turn, or tied your shoelaces while thinking of something else. Those actions flowed not from active thought, but from the subconscious patterns etched deep into your brain. It is not merely a storehouse of habit. It is a vast builder of associations, instincts, and intuition. This architect is also an artist. When inspiration strikes like lightning, it is not your conscious self forcing it. It is the subconscious releasing the design it has been quietly shaping all along. The painting, the poem, the idea, the breakthrough, all of them emerge not from constant effort, but from the background labor of this silent builder. But here lies both the gift and the danger. The subconscious builds with whatever material you give it. If you feed it fear, repetition of doubt, constant images of failure, it will construct walls that limit you. If you feed it beauty, repetition of courage, constant images of growth, it will construct bridges that carry you further than you imagined. The subconscious does not judge, it only builds. Unlocking your brain's full potential means learning to collaborate with this hidden architect. Through practice, through intention, through the stories you tell yourself, you provide the raw material for construction. Affirmation, visualization, mindfulness. These are not empty rituals, but bricks and beams given to the subconscious. With them, it builds pathways of resilience, confidence, and clarity. Without them, it builds cages. The subconscious architect is always at work. The question is, what are you allowing it to design? If you ignore it, it will build from the scraps of worry and distraction. If you honor it, it will raise structures of possibility so vast they may astonish you. Beneath your conscious life, a city is being built, and each choice you make, each word, each thought, each image is another stone laid by the architect. Unlocking your brain's potential begins with realizing you are both the builder and the one who lives in what is built. At the very core of your mind, deeper than memory, deeper than thought, deeper even than the subconscious, lies something more elusive, an awareness that cannot be reduced to circuits or explained away as mere chemistry. It is the part of you that watches quietly as thoughts rise and fall. It is the witness behind every perception, the infinite self within. This awareness does not change, even as the brain rewires, even as the body shifts and ages. As a child, you were aware. As an adult, you are aware. In old age, you will still be aware. Everything else alters, the scenery, the emotions, the stories, but awareness remains the same clear sky behind the passing clouds. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not only about sharpening memory or mastering focus. It is about realizing this deeper layer, that you are not simply the content of your mind, but the consciousness that holds it all. This realization changes everything. Suddenly, fear loses its grip, for you are not the fear, but the witness of it. Doubt loses its sting, for you are not the doubt, but the one who sees it pass. You discover that within you there is a place untouched by chaos, unshaken by time. Science is only beginning to circle this mystery. Neuroscience can map neural firing, psychology can trace behavior, but the raw fact of awareness remains elusive. It is the ghost in the machine, the quiet flame that cannot be measured but can be felt. Mystics have named it soul, presence, consciousness, spirit. But whatever word you choose, it points to the same reality. There is more within you than neurons, To touch this infinite self is to access the greatest reservoir of the brain's potential, because from this space, every other ability flows freely. Creativity becomes effortless, for you are no longer bound by fear of judgment. Memory expands because awareness sharpens the moment. Compassion deepens because you sense the same witness glowing in every other being. This is not something to add, but something to uncover. The infinite self is not waiting to be built. It is already here, right now, in the silence behind your thoughts, in the stillness that watches as you breathe. Unlocking it is as simple and as difficult as pausing, turning inward, and noticing what has always been present. In the end, unlocking your brain's full potential is not about becoming more than human. It is about remembering the fullness of being human, that beneath layers of thought and memory lies a boundless awareness, infinite, luminous, and free. The hidden reservoir is not out there. It is here, inside you, waiting for you to finally see. Your mind is like a room filled with candles. Each one represents a thought, a memory, a dream, a plan. Some flicker brightly for only a moment before fading. Others burn steadily, casting their light across your entire inner world. Yet no matter how many candles you hold, you can only truly attend to one flame at a time. This flame, your attention, is the most fragile, the most powerful tool your brain possesses. Attention is not merely about seeing, it is about shaping reality. What you notice grows stronger. What you ignore fades into the background. Look closely at a flower, and the details of its petals bloom in your mind. But in that very moment, the rest of the world blurs. Focus sharpens one thing while softening everything else. In this way, your attention carves your experience of life like a sculptor's hand shaping stone. Yet the flame is delicate. It is easily pulled, scattered, divided. A notification buzzes, a stray thought intrudes, a memory stirs, and suddenly the flame leaps to another candle, leaving the first to waver in the dark. Modern life, with its endless demands, feeds on this fragility. Our attention is tugged in 1,000 directions until the flame burns low, weak and restless. And here lies the paradox. Unlocking your brain's full potential does not mean feeding it more information, more noise, more distraction. It means learning to guard the flame of attention, to choose deliberately where it rests, and to keep it steady long enough for the light to grow. For when attention holds steady, the brain changes. Circuits strengthen, understanding deepens, creativity unfolds. What begins as a flicker becomes a beacon. Think of the musician who practices until the instrument feels like an extension of the soul. Think of the writer who vanishes into words until hours dissolve into minutes. Think of the scientist staring at equations until patterns bloom like constellations. None of this is possible without the fragile flame of focus. It is not talent alone, but attention, sustained, patient, unwavering, that unlocks mastery. And here is the deeper truth. Where your attention goes, your life goes. If you focus only on fear, the world becomes frightening. If you focus on beauty, beauty multiplies. If you focus on growth, every moment becomes a seed. Your attention is not only what you look at, it is what you live. So the question becomes, how will you tend to this fragile flame? Will you allow the winds of distraction to scatter it endlessly? Or will you guard it, feed it, shape it into a light strong enough to illuminate the hidden corners of your mind? Every moment, countless voices compete for the flame of your awareness. Some come from the world outside, screens glowing, messages pinging, headlines screaming for your eyes. Others rise from within, memories, worries, desires, fears. All of them clamor at once, tugging at the fragile flame, each insisting, look at me, listen to me, believe me. Your brain evolved in a world where focus was survival. To notice the rustle of leaves might mean spotting prey or avoiding a predator. To follow the patterns of stars meant guiding your tribe safely home. Attention was not fragmented then. It was a matter of life and death. Today, though, the same ancient brain faces an avalanche of stimuli it was never built to handle. And so the flame is scattered, split into shards, burning weakly in too many directions at once. This battle is not neutral. The world is full of forces designed to capture attention, to hold it hostage. Every color chosen on a screen, every sound engineered into a device, is crafted with precision to exploit the brain's natural wiring. Dopamine pulses when you scroll, when you click, when you chase the next novelty. The fragile flame is hijacked, again and again, until it grows restless, unable to rest in stillness. But the deepest battle is not outside. It is within. The mind itself is a restless creature. Even in silence, it leaps from one thought to another, weaving endless stories, dragging you through past regrets and imagined futures. You sit to work, but your mind whispers of yesterday's mistake. You sit to rest, but it whispers of tomorrow's fear. The battle for attention is fought as much in the quiet of your skull as in the noise of the world. And yet, there is power here. For though many forces pull at the flame, you alone hold the final choice of where it rests. You may not control the wind, but you can build walls to shield the candle. Through intention, through discipline, through gentle return, you can reclaim your attention from the chaos that seeks to claim it. Every time you choose to notice your breath instead of your worry, you win. Every time you place your focus on what matters instead of what distracts, you win. Every time you gently return to the task, the person, the moment before you, you win. And with each small victory, the flame grows steadier, brighter, more your own. The battle for attention is constant, but it is not hopeless. To recognize the battle is the first step. To fight it with gentleness rather than force is the second. And to realize that the flame of your focus is not a victim, but a tool. That is the key. For once you learn to master where your attention rests, the battle turns into art. There is a place where the mind becomes like a river, steady, unbroken, carrying its current with power and silence. This is the state of deep work. A state where distractions dissolve, time bends, and all that remains is you and the task before you. When you enter deep work, the mind no longer flutters from branch to branch like a restless bird. Instead, it settles, spreads its wings, and soars into the vast open air. Hours pass like minutes. Effort feels like flow. And what you create in such moments bears the mark of something higher: clarity, precision, even beauty. Neuroscience tells us that in deep work, your brain sinks into what is known as the flow state. Dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, all align to sharpen your focus and reward your persistence. Your prefrontal cortex, that conductor of thought, quiets its chatter, allowing other networks to harmonize. The result is not just efficiency, it is transcendence. But deep work is not accidental. It requires a clearing of space, both around and within. It demands that you silence the world's noise long enough to hear your own. It asks that you resist the seduction of shallow distractions, the scroll, the buzz, the easy escape, and instead step into the quiet labor of depth. Imagine a sculptor with marble. Every strike of the chisel is deliberate, every pause intentional. They do not rush. They inhabit the stone. The same is true with your mind. To do deep work is to carve away the excess, to focus your attention on the essence, and in that process, to create something that could not have existed otherwise. Yet, the gift of deep work is not only in what you produce, it is in who you become. For when you train the mind to dwell in depth, you train yourself to resist the shallows. You become less fragile, less scattered. You build a kind of inner strength, a calm resilience that endures beyond the task. Deep work is not just about achieving, it is about living differently. It is about reclaiming time, reclaiming presence, reclaiming the very texture of your days. It is about learning that the most powerful tool you possess is not speed, not multitasking, not endless consumption, but the quiet, patient ability to give your whole self to one thing at a time. This is the gift, and it waits for you every day, just beyond the noise. Every glance away has a price. Every click, every shift, every small surrender to interruption leaves behind invisible scars on the fabric of your mind. It feels harmless, the quick check of a notification, the sudden urge to peek at a message, the detour into another window. But each time, a thread of your attention is cut, and your brain must weave itself back together. Scientists call this attention residue. When you jump from one task to another, the mind does not instantly let go. A piece of it lingers, clinging to the task abandoned, whispering its unfinished business into your thoughts. Even when you return, you are not fully there. It takes minutes, sometimes longer, to settle back into depth. Multiply this by dozens of daily interruptions, and you see why the flame of focus flickers so weakly. But the cost is not only in time, it is in the quality of your thoughts. A distracted mind becomes shallow, unable to sink into the deep waters where true ideas dwell. Creativity suffers, memory weakens, even your emotional balance frays, for constant distraction keeps the nervous system humming with low-level stress, never at rest, never at peace. Think of it this way. Every interruption is like tapping a pond. The ripples spread outward, distorting the surface. Only when stillness returns can the pond reflect clearly. Your mind is the same. Only in stillness can it reflect truth, beauty, and insight. Yet we live in an economy of distraction, one where your attention is the currency and everything around you is designed to spend it. The more scattered you are, the more profitable you become. And so, distraction is not merely a personal weakness. It is a force cultivated, nurtured, engineered into your environment. To reclaim your focus is, in this sense, an act of quiet rebellion. But rebellion begins with awareness. To notice the cost is the first defense. To feel in your own body the difference between scattered time and deep time, between fractured thought and whole thought. To see that each distraction robs not only your minutes, but your very sense of presence, of being alive to this one moment. The hidden cost of distraction is steep, but the reward of guarding your focus is immeasurable. For in that guarded space, life itself becomes more vivid, more whole, more your own. The mind does not like to sit still. It drifts, it meanders, it spins stories and chases shadows. You sit to read, and it leaps to a memory. You sit to work, and it leaps to a worry. This is not failure. It is simply the nature of thought. Like clouds drifting across the sky, the mind will wander again and again. But here lies the secret. The power is not in preventing the wandering. It is in noticing it and gently returning. Every time you bring the mind back, you strengthen a muscle, subtle but profound. Neuroscience shows that this act, the catching and returning of attention, builds the brain's prefrontal cortex, the very seat of focus and control. In this way, the wandering is not an obstacle, but an opportunity. Think of training a wild horse. At first, it resists, pulling against the reins, charging toward whatever captures its instincts. But with patience, with consistency, it learns to return. The horse does not lose its spirit, it learns direction. Your mind is that horse, and training it is the art of focus. Meditation is one of the oldest tools for this training, not to silence the mind, that is impossible, but to observe it gently, without judgment, and to guide it back. The breath becomes an anchor. Each inhalation, each exhalation is a reminder, here, now, again. And slowly, the wandering shortens, the returns grow swifter, and the flame steadies. But meditation is not the only practice. Any act of deliberate attention can train the wandering mind. Reading without distraction, listening deeply to another person, walking in silence, noticing each step. These are not just tasks. They are rehearsals for focus, ways of building the capacity to hold the flame against the wind. And with time, the wandering shifts. It does not vanish, but it loses its grip. The thoughts still come, but they pass like clouds. Noticed, but no longer consuming. You learn that you are not your thoughts, but the witness of them. And in that, Witness, you discover freedom. Training. The wandering mind is not about perfection. It is about practice. It is about learning that each return, no matter how small, is a victory. For in every return, you reclaim your presence. And in reclaiming presence, you unlock a deeper layer of your potential. In a world that never stops speaking, silence becomes rare, almost radical. And yet, silence is the soil where focus takes root. Without it, the flame of attention flickers, always battered by winds of noise. With it, the flame steadies, burns brighter, and illuminates far more than you expect. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the absence of intrusion, of distraction, of endless external pull. True silence is spacious. It gives the mind room to stretch, to breathe, to notice what usually hides beneath the noise. In silence, the scattered fragments of thought begin to align. Connections form, insights rise, creativity blooms in the still air. But silence can feel uncomfortable at first. To sit without music, without chatter, without scrolling or reaching, is to be left alone with yourself. And that self, restless, loud, full of uninvited thoughts, can be intimidating. Many avoid silence not because it is empty, but because it is full of the things we bury, the truths we ignore, the emotions we fear. Yet this is exactly why silence is powerful. It holds a mirror to the mind. It reveals the patterns, the anxieties, the loops that rule us from the shadows. And only by seeing them can we begin to free ourselves from them. Silence does not weaken you. It strengthens you because it shows you what you carry. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain, when given quiet rest, does not shut down. It reorganizes. It clears mental clutter, consolidates memory, sparks creative associations. Silence is not an absence of activity. It is a deeper activity, one that can only happen when the noise stops. If you wish to train focus, practice silence. Not hours at once, not monasteries or mountains. Begin with minutes. A morning without a phone. A walk without headphones. A few breaths in stillness before you step into the storm of the day. These moments add up. Slowly, silence becomes less a void and more a refuge. In silence, you discover that attention does not always need to be pulled. It can rest softly, naturally, in the present. And when the world grows loud again, you carry that stillness inside, a secret superpower, untouched by the noise. Focus does not appear by chance, it is summoned. And the way you summon it is through ritual. Rituals are the signals you send to your brain, telling it, now we enter the realm of depth. Now we set aside the noise. Now we give ourselves fully to one thing. These rituals need not be grand. They can be as simple as lighting a candle before you begin, or as subtle as placing your phone in another room. The brain craves patterns. When repeated actions mark the threshold of focus, the mind begins to obey. It learns that when this ritual begins, distractions fade, attention sharpens, and the wandering stills. Think of how athletes prepare before a game. The warm-up, the stretch, the familiar gestures, all are signals, not only to the body, but to the mind. It is time. You too can build rituals that prepare your mind for focus. A desk cleared of clutter, a notebook opened to a fresh page, a deep breath taken before the first word is written. Small acts, but powerful in their consistency. Rituals also protect focus by creating boundaries. When you choose a time, a place, a sequence, you are not just preparing your mind, you are shaping your environment. You are telling the world, this space is sacred, this moment is guarded, this task deserves my whole self. Over time, the environment itself becomes infused with meaning. Sit in that chair, light that candle, and your mind remembers, this is where I focus, this is who I am here. There is also beauty in the rhythm of ritual. In a chaotic world, it becomes a steady drumbeat, a reminder that you are not powerless, that you can create islands of intention within the ocean of noise. Ritual is not superstition. It is structure. It is care. It is the art of meeting your own mind with respect. The wandering mind will always return. Distraction will always call, but ritual builds the bridge that carries you back to focus, again and again, until the path becomes second nature. And when focus becomes natural, the flame steadies, not by accident, but by design. The world tells you to do more, faster, louder, all at once. Multitasking is praised as efficiency, as strength. But the truth is simpler, quieter. Your brain was never built to chase two flames at once. It can flicker between them, yes, but each flicker costs energy, each switch steals clarity, and in the end, both flames burn dim. Single tasking, then, is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the choice to give yourself wholly to one thing at a time, to resist the illusion that doing more means being more. When you single task, your mind enters a flow. The chatter quiets, the residue fades, and the full power of your attention is unlocked. Imagine a musician playing one instrument with total devotion. Every note resonates, every vibration sings. Now imagine that same musician trying to play 3 instruments at once, how quickly the music collapses into noise. Your attention is no different. It can create symphonies when directed, but only noise when scattered. The practice of single tasking is both simple and difficult. Simple, because it requires no new tools, no advanced methods, only the decision to do one thing fully. Difficult, because the world is constantly pulling you elsewhere. Notifications, temptations, the fear of missing out, all whisper that you should divide yourself, but each division is a fracture, and fractured time leaves a fractured life. When you single task, you enter presence. Washing a dish becomes not a chore, but a meditation in movement. Writing a word becomes not just output, but creation. Speaking to someone becomes not just sound, but connection. Every act, however small, becomes richer when met with your whole self, and the benefits ripple outward. Productivity rises, yes, but more importantly, peace rises. Anxiety lessens, satisfaction deepens. You begin to feel not that you are sprinting endlessly on a treadmill, but that you are walking with purpose, step by step, into your own chosen direction. To flow with single tasking is to honor your mind's design. It is to say, I will not scatter myself thin across the noise. I will place my flame here, now, fully. And in doing so, I will unlock more than I ever could by chasing everything at once. Focus is not only a skill, it is a form of energy. Each day, you awaken with a reservoir of it, finite and precious. Every decision, every distraction, every shift of attention draws from this reservoir. By evening, if not guarded, it is drained, leaving you scattered, weary, unfocused. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. Every choice, no matter how small, what to wear, what to eat, when to reply, whether to scroll, consumes a drop of your attention's fuel. At first, the drops seem small, but over hundreds of choices, the reservoir empties. And when it does, focus falters. You may still sit to work, but the mind wanders. You may still wish to create, but the flame sputters. Guarding. This energy is vital. Rituals help, routines help. Simplifying decisions, preparing clothes, structuring meals, limiting options, frees the reservoir for what truly matters. This is why great thinkers often favored simplicity in daily life. They understood attention is too valuable to be wasted on the trivial, but energy of attention is not only drained, it can be renewed. Rest restores it, sleep replenishes it, breaks during work refresh it, movement and exercise fuel it. Even stepping outside into sunlight, even breathing deeply for a moment, can refill the reservoir. Focus is not built on endless effort, it is built on rhythm, on knowing when to guard, when to spend, and when to renew. There is also alignment. When you direct attention toward what resonates, work that matters, conversations that nourish, tasks that align with purpose, the reservoir drains more slowly. Energy flows naturally when the flame burns in harmony with meaning. Distraction, on the other hand, burns energy quickly, leaving you exhausted with nothing to show. Think of attention as currency. Spend it on noise, and you end the day bankrupt. Spend it on depth, and you end the day enriched, even if tired. The art of focus, then, is not only choosing where to place attention, it is choosing where not to place it, guarding your flame from the winds that would extinguish it. To unlock your brain's potential, you must see focus not as infinite, but as sacred. Protect it, spend it wisely, renew it daily, for the energy of attention is the foundation upon which all other powers of the mind are built. Not all distractions shout, some whisper. They sit at the edges of your awareness, an unfinished task, a message unanswered, a cluttered desk, a worry you keep postponing. You may not look directly at them, but they pull at you all the same, invisible weights on the flame of your focus. This is the weight of hidden noise. It is the mental static that hums beneath the surface of thought, consuming energy without your consent. The brain, wired to keep track of unfinished business, cannot let go. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the mind to cling to incomplete tasks, to keep rehearsing them in the background until resolved. Think of it as too many open tabs in the browser of your mind. Each one draws memory, attention, energy, even when not in use. The more tabs remain open, the slower the system runs. The same is true within you. Hidden noise scatters your attention, leaving little room for depth. Clearing hidden noise is not about doing everything at once. It is about closing loops. Write the task down, place it on a list, give it a time, a place, a plan. The brain, once reassured that it will not be forgotten, releases it from constant rehearsal. In this way, organization becomes not just efficiency, it becomes liberation. Decluttering the physical world also clears the mental one. A desk cleared of excess, a room free of unnecessary objects, becomes a space where the flame can rest without distraction. Simplicity outside creates simplicity inside. But the deepest noise comes not from objects or tasks, but from the unresolved emotions we avoid. Anger unspoken, grief unprocessed, desires denied. These too hum beneath the surface, pulling at focus. To face them, to give them space, to allow them to move through you, is to free the mind from their hidden weight. When hidden noise is cleared, silence deepens, focus sharpens. You feel lighter, as though an invisible burden has been lifted. The flame burns steadier, not because the world has grown quieter, but because you have. The art of focus, then, is not only guarding against loud distractions, it is also listening for the whispers and gently closing the loops that keep them alive. For only when the hidden noise is quiet can your mind fully awaken to its potential. Where your attention goes, there you are. It is not only about what you see, it is about who you become. For the objects of your focus shape the architecture of your mind, carving grooves into your neural pathways, reinforcing patterns, forming identity. If you spend your days focused on fear, the brain learns to live in vigilance. If you dwell on anger, the brain wires itself toward conflict. If you focus on beauty, gratitude, and meaning, those too grow stronger, more natural, more your own. Attention is not neutral, it is the sculptor of the self. Philosophers have long whispered this truth. The Stoics spoke of guarding the mind from petty concerns. Buddhists spoke of mindfulness as the path to freedom. Modern science echoes the same. Neurons that fire together, wire together. What you attend to repeatedly becomes the fabric of your brain, and therefore the fabric of your life. To see attention as a mirror of the soul is to recognize its sacredness. When you fixate on resentment, the mirror reflects bitterness. When you notice kindness, the mirror reflects warmth. You do not only see the world, you create the lens through which the world is seen. This is why training focus is more than productivity. It is character. It is spirituality. It is the art of choosing what will live inside you. For every moment of attention is an investment, not just in knowledge or skill, but in the very person you are becoming. Imagine your attention as sunlight. Where it shines, life grows. Where it withdraws, life withers. If you shine it on weeds, weeds will thrive. If you shine it on flowers, flowers will bloom. Your mind is the same garden. The choice of where to place your attention is the choice of what to cultivate in your soul. And so every small act of focus becomes profound. Looking deeply at someone you love, dwelling in wonder at a tree, a sky, a song, giving yourself fully to your work, not out of obligation, but out of devotion. These choices accumulate. They build not just a focused mind, but a luminous self. Attention is the mirror. What it reflects is up to you. Focus is not a straight line. It is a rhythm, a dance between effort and release, attention and pause. Like the beating of the heart, like the tide of the sea, focus flourishes when it moves in cycles. To demand it endlessly, without renewal, is to burn the flame until nothing remains. The brain itself is not built for constant, unbroken concentration. It works in waves. Neural circuits fire intensely, then quiet. Chemicals surge, then recede, push beyond their natural rhythm, and focus collapses into fatigue. But honor the rhythm, work deeply, then rest briefly, and attention returns brighter, sharper, more alive. This is why great creators often worked in intervals. Writers with their morning hours, scientists with their deliberate breaks, musicians who paused to let silence teach them. They understood. Rest is not the enemy of focus. It is its partner. Rest does not mean idleness. It can be a walk, a breath, a gaze at the horizon. It can be silence, or laughter, or sleep. In these pauses, the brain consolidates, repairs, reorganizes. Problems left unsolved in focus often find their answers in rest. Creativity blossoms not only in the fire of work, but in the quiet afterglow. Modern life, however, resists this rhythm. It praises endless grinding, constant busyness, the illusion that longer hours equal deeper focus. But this is a lie. Exhaustion breeds shallow thinking, careless mistakes, dull creativity. True mastery comes from balance, knowing when to strike and when to withdraw. Think of a musician holding a note. The beauty is not only in the sound, but in the silence that follows. Think of the inhale and the exhale, each incomplete without the other. Focus is the same. It needs its counterpart, renewal, to remain whole. To unlock your brain's full potential, you must learn this rhythm. Work deeply, then rest deliberately. Guard the flame, then let it breathe. Do not see rest as weakness, but as strength, as the hidden half of focus. For in renewal, you prepare the mind not just to return, but to rise higher than before. Attention is a delicate thread, spun from the quiet machinery of the mind. It is strong enough to hold vast ideas, yet fragile enough to snap at the smallest tug. A vibration of the phone, a flicker of movement, an unfinished thought. Any of these can scatter focus into fragments. This fragility is not weakness, but nature. The brain evolved to notice danger, to scan for change, to be alert to the sudden and the new, a rustle in the grass, a shadow on the horizon. Long ago, such interruptions saved lives. But in the modern world, this same sensitivity has turned against us. Instead of predators, it is pings and notifications, endless feeds and flashing screens. The brain leaps to each one, mistaking them for survival, when in truth, they steal the energy of creation. The price of constant interruption is not just lost time, it is lost depth. Each distraction fractures the flow of thought, scattering it into shallow pools. To return takes minutes, sometimes longer. The mind must gather its pieces, reassemble the thread, and only then dive again. But too many dives, too many breaks, and the thread itself weakens. This is why focus feels rare in our age. Not because the mind has lost its power, but because the world keeps tugging at the thread. Attention can be trained, yes, but it must also be protected. Imagine focus as a flame in the wind. Shield it, and it burns steady. Leave it exposed, and every breeze will bend it, scatter it, extinguish it. The brain is the same. To hold deep focus, you must create conditions where fragility is respected. Silence, or soft sound, a place where interruptions cannot reach. A time set aside where the mind knows it is safe to dive. The strength of your attention depends not only on how hard you try to hold it, but on how well you shield it from harm. Guard it, and the fragile thread becomes a rope, pulling you deeper, steadier, into the work that matters most. There exists a hidden current in the mind, a river of thought that, once entered, carries you effortlessly forward. This is the flow state, the rare moment when attention, action, and awareness dissolve into one. Time bends, the world outside fades, and the task before you becomes the only reality. Flow is not ordinary focus. It is focus elevated, purified, sharpened until it hums. In flow, you are not struggling to hold attention. The attention holds you. The mind is so deeply engaged that distraction loses its power. Hunger is forgotten, fatigue ignored. Even the sense of self thins, as if the ego itself has stepped aside to let the work breathe. Scientists describe flow as the sweet spot between challenge and skill. Too easy, and the mind wanders. Too hard, and it resists. But when difficulty matches ability, when the climb is steep enough to demand everything, yet not so steep as to overwhelm, the mind enters its highest gear. Neurochemicals surge, sharpening focus, boosting memory, quickening thought. In this space, the brain performs as if it has been waiting its whole life for this precise balance. Artists, athletes, thinkers, all know this river. The painter loses herself in color until the canvas seems to paint itself. The athlete moves faster than thought, body guided by something deeper. The writer watches words spill as if from another hand. Each describes it differently, yet all describe the same state. The vanishing of effort, the rising of something greater. Flow cannot be forced, but it can be invited. It asks for full presence, for clear intention, for an environment free from constant interruption. It asks for tasks that matter, challenges that stretch without breaking. It asks for courage, to step into the unknown edge of your ability, where growth lives. When flow arrives, it feels like flying, but it is not magic. It is the mind, unshackled, finally free to operate at its true speed. And every time you taste it, you glimpse what your brain was always capable of, a brilliance that does not strain, but simply is. Focus is not merely an act of attention. It is a discipline, a way of living, a declaration that your mind will not be rented out to every noise that knocks at the door. To cultivate true focus is to step into deep work, the practice of entering states where the brain does its most meaningful, most transformative labor. Deep work is not urgent emails, nor scattered browsing, nor the flickering between tabs. It is the opposite. Long, undisturbed stretches where one thought unfolds into another, where ideas gather weight, where the shallow surface breaks and the deeper waters reveal themselves. It is in this silence, this commitment, that your brain ceases to skim and begins to dive. The difficulty of deep work is not in ability, it is in choice. The world will always offer you easier paths. The quick scroll, the instant reply, the small rush of novelty. Each promises something, yet leaves you empty, like eating air. Deep work asks more. It demands patience, solitude, intention. It asks you to sit in discomfort, in slowness, until the mind steadies and the waters clear. But in return, it offers what nothing else can: progress that endures. A page written in deep work is worth 10 written in distraction. An hour of deep thinking can resolve what days of shallow effort could not. The breakthroughs of science, the symphonies of art, the timeless ideas that still shape us, all were born not from noise, but from silence, from deep attention. To unlock this discipline, rituals help. A space free from interruption, a time sacredly set aside. The removal of small temptations, phone out of reach, notifications silenced, the world gently pushed aside. These are not mere tricks. They are signals to the brain. Here, now, we go deep. The more often you repeat them, the more the mind learns to enter the state swiftly, as if slipping into a familiar current. And there is something almost sacred in this act. In a culture obsessed with speed and surface, to choose depth is rebellion. To say, I will not be pulled apart by fragments, I will hold my mind whole. It is not only a way to work, it is a way to live, to respect the brain's power by giving it the stillness it needs to bloom. The discipline of deep work is not about being stricter, but about being freer. For when you master it, you master time itself. Hours stretch, meaning expands, and the work left behind carries the unmistakable mark of clarity. This is the true art of focus, not a desperate clinging to attention, but the serene surrender to depth. In it, you touch the highest potential of your brain, and perhaps the highest potential of yourself. Memory is not a simple recording, not a perfect film strip waiting to be replayed. It is a living, breathing architecture, fragile and resilient, flawed yet astonishing. Each experience you have does not simply store itself. It is encoded, translated into the language of neurons, and woven into a shifting tapestry that stretches across your brain. When you recall something, you are not pulling a file from a drawer. You are rebuilding it, reassembling fragments scattered across regions. A smell here, an image there, the echo of a word stitched into another part. The hippocampus acts as the master of ceremonies, binding these fragments together into a coherent memory. But with each recall, the story changes slightly, like clay reshaped in the hand. This is why memory feels vivid, yet remains slippery. Why you can be certain of a detail, only to discover later it never happened at all. But imperfection is not weakness, it is adaptation. The brain edits because survival requires flexibility. If memory were rigid, we could not learn, we could not update, we could not imagine beyond the past. The shifting of memory makes space for growth, for new connections, for the blending of reality with possibility. It is this same plasticity that allows us to dream, to create, to envision futures not yet lived. Think of memory as a library, where books rewrite themselves each time you read them. Some chapters grow stronger, brighter, etched deeper with each revisit. Others fade, becoming faint whispers, unless pulled from the shelf and remembered again. Repetition, attention, and emotion are the librarians that decide which shelves stay lit and which grow dark. This is why certain moments never leave you. The first heartbreak, the birth of a child, the near accident, the triumph that made you feel infinite. Emotion stamps memory with permanence, searing it into the architecture with a force ordinary days cannot match. Meanwhile, routine hours blur together, unremarkable, as if the brain has decided they are not worth keeping. The architecture of recall is not merely a storehouse of the past. It is the scaffolding upon which your identity stands. Who you believe you are, what you think you have endured, the stories you tell about your life, all of it rises from this living structure of memory. To understand it is to understand yourself, and to unlock it, to shape it intentionally, is to realize that memory is not just what happens to you, it is what you choose to keep. and how you choose to carry it forward. Forgetting is often treated as failure, a flaw in the machinery of the brain, a weakness of will or intelligence. But in truth, forgetting is not only natural, it is essential. Without it, life would drown you. Every face you passed, every word you heard, every detail of every day would cling like vines, pulling your mind into a suffocating thicket. Forgetting is the pruning, the quiet gardener of the mind, keeping only what must endure. Think of a path through the forest. The more often you walk it, the clearer it becomes, the undergrowth pressed flat beneath your steps. This is memory. Now imagine paths you never return to. Slowly, the weeds rise again, branches fall, and the trail vanishes. This is forgetting. It is not erasure, but neglect, a natural reclaiming of space so that new paths can form. The fragility of memory lies in this truth. Recall is not guaranteed. A name on the tip of your tongue, a childhood street you can almost, but not quite, picture. These lapses remind us that memory is not a vault, but a living web that needs tending. Neglect a memory long enough, and it may collapse, its pieces, scattered beyond retrieval. Yet fragility has its gift. Forgetting spares us from the unbearable weight of every sorrow, every mistake, every humiliation replaying endlessly. It allows wounds to soften, regrets to blur, and grief to lose its sharpest edge. Imagine if every pain remained as raw as the day it struck. You would not move forward, you would shatter. Forgetting, in its mercy, allows you to live again. Still, fragility cuts both ways. Just as it softens what harms, it can also erase what you wish to hold. A grandmother's voice fading, a lover's scent slipping away, a detail you swore you would never lose. In these moments, forgetting feels cruel, like a thief sneaking into the house of your identity. And yet, even here, the brain whispers a secret. What you tend grows. Revisit a memory. Speak it aloud. Write it down. Weave it into stories. Each act of attention strengthens the thread, makes the fragile web more resilient. Forgetting will always be part of life, but the balance is yours to shape. The fragility of forgetting is a paradox, both a danger and a gift. To fear it is to misunderstand it. For in forgetting, the brain clears space for becoming, just as much as it lets go of what was. Some memories glow like embers in the mind, warm even decades later. Others vanish within days, dissolved into the haze of routine. What decides the difference is not chance. It is emotion, the invisible fire that stamps certain moments with permanence. When something stirs your feelings deeply, joy, fear, awe, grief, the brain responds with urgency. Chemicals flood the system. Adrenaline heightens awareness. Dopamine sharpens attention. Cortisol marks the moment with gravity. The hippocampus, keeper of memory, listens carefully, knowing that what carries weight must be preserved. And so, the details are etched more firmly, burned into the architecture of recall. This is why you remember where you were during life's defining shocks, yet forget what you ate for breakfast 3 days ago. The breakfast carried no story, no surge of emotion. It passed quietly, unmarked. But the heartbreak, the triumph, the near miss on the road, these moments carried meaning, and the brain, in its wisdom, made them unforgettable. Emotion does not simply glue memory, it colors it. The same event can feel luminous or dark, depending on the feelings tied to it. A song may hold joy for one person and sorrow for another, not because the notes differ, but because of the memory wrapped around it. This is why emotion is the paint and memory the canvas. Yet this fusion is not perfect. Emotion can distort, bending memory into shapes that serve the story you tell yourself. A slight becomes magnified into betrayal, a kind gesture remembered as salvation. Over time, the brain edits and re-edits, strengthening the emotion, even if the facts blur. In this way, memory is less a mirror and more a painter, brushing in shadows and highlights according to the heart. This interplay explains why we cannot simply will ourselves to forget pain. The emotion keeps calling it back, demanding to be felt again. Nor can we easily erase joy, for the brain wants to keep the bright things that remind it life is worth enduring. Emotion gives memory its hierarchy, deciding what will fade and what will define. And so, to understand your memories is to understand your emotions. The things you cannot forget are the things that shaped you. The things you remember most vividly are the things your heart once insisted mattered most. Memory is not just thought preserved, it is feeling fossilized in the mind, alive, still, burning, shaping who you are long after the moment itself has passed. We often trust memory as truth, as if it were a photograph stored in the vaults of the mind. But memory is not truth, it is a story. A story told again and again, edited each time, reshaped by emotion, suggestion, and time itself. What you recall is not what happened, it is what your brain believes happened, stitched together from fragments. Psychologists have long shown how fragile memory is. Ask witnesses of the same event, and they will give different details, each certain they are right. Change a single word in a question. Was there broken glass? And suddenly, people remember shards that never existed. Suggest an object, and the mind may plant it there, weaving it seamlessly into the narrative. Why is memory so malleable? Because it was never designed as a perfect archive. Its purpose is not accuracy, but survival. The brain prioritizes meaning over detail, coherence over precision. If a memory can guide your choices, keep you safe, or help you belong, it serves its purpose, even if the fine print has been rewritten. Think of memory as a painting, not a photograph. Each time you recall it, you touch the canvas again, adding a new brushstroke, perhaps changing a color, perhaps brightening what was once dim. Over time, the painting may bear little resemblance to the original scene, yet it feels more real because it has been lived and relived. This is why nostalgia often feels sweeter than reality. The mind sands down the rough edges, exaggerates, the warmth blurs the discomfort. The past becomes not what it was, but what you need it to be. And so memory comforts, even as it deceives. But illusions are not only gentle, memory can also betray. Trauma may sharpen certain details while erasing others, leaving gaps that the mind fills with guesses it mistakes for truth. Conflicts in families, misunderstandings between friends. How many are born not from malice, but from memory's tricks? Each person clings to a different version of the past, certain of their own accuracy, blind to the illusion. To realize that memory is an artist, not a camera, is to free yourself. You need not worship every recall as fact. You can question it, examine it, reshape it consciously. For just as memory can be altered by accident, it can also be sculpted with intention. You can choose which illusions to keep, which stories to let go, and which to reframe into something more healing, more empowering. The illusions of memory remind us of this. The past is not fixed. It is alive, shifting, breathing with you. What you remember is less about what happened and more about who you have become. When you ask yourself who you are, you do not point to your heartbeat, nor to the bones of your skeleton. You point inward to your story. And that story is memory. Without memory, there is no continuity, no thread tying the child you once were to the person you are now. Identity is not carved in stone, it is stitched in recollection. Consider this. If every memory were stripped away, what would remain? A body, yes, but not a self. No preferences, no history, no name with meaning. You would be a vessel emptied of identity. This is why amnesia is so haunting. Because it is not merely the loss of information, but the unraveling of the self. Every decision you make, every value you hold, traces back to memory. You believe honesty matters because you recall betrayal. You pursue love because you remember its warmth. You avoid danger because you remember pain. Identity is not a fixed essence. It is a storybook written page by page in the ink of memory. Yet, memory is imperfect, and so too is identity. We shape our recollections to fit the story we wish to tell ourselves. A failure may fade, a triumph may shine brighter, depending on the narrative we need. This editing is not deceit, it is survival. It allows us to move forward, to carry meaning, to maintain coherence in a life that might otherwise feel fragmented. In this sense, identity is less about the accuracy of memory and more about its consistency. You may misremember details, but as long as the story feels whole, you feel whole. The you that exists today is a construction, carefully assembled from chosen fragments of yesterday. But here lies a quiet power. If memory shapes identity, then reshaping memory can reshape who you are. To revisit a painful event and see it through new eyes, to reinterpret failure as growth, to honor even the scars as part of the design. This is to rewrite the narrative of the self. Not falsifying, but reframing, transforming wounds into wisdom. Thus, memory is not only the keeper of who you were, but the architect of who you can become. The self is not fixed. It is fluid, alive, evolving with each new recall. You are not simply what happened to you. You are what you remember and what you choose to make of that remembering. Identity, then, is not destiny. It is authorship. And the pen is always in your hand. Memory does not live only within the individual mind. It extends outward, weaving threads between people, binding them into families, tribes, nations, and civilizations. This is collective memory, the shared recollections that give groups their identity, the stories that tell us not just who I am, but who we are. A family has its legends, the grandmother who crossed oceans, the father who worked with unshakable hands, the moment everyone still laughs about years later. These stories, passed around tables and carried in voices, become part of each member's identity. Even the child not yet born into the memory inherits it, living as if they were there. Communities do the same. Festivals, rituals, monuments, all are vessels of memory. A people remembers a war survived, a migration endured, a freedom won. These memories shape values, customs, and fears, creating a sense of belonging. They tell us where we come from, and therefore where we belong. Nations too are built on memory. Their histories, both true and mythologized, form the backbone of collective identity. Heroes are elevated, tragedies are mourned, victories are celebrated. These stories unify millions under a single banner, even if their lives differ wildly. Memory becomes a binding spell, strong enough to hold together vast populations who may never meet. But collective memory is no more perfect than personal memory. It is selective, edited, often rewritten. Whole chapters may be silenced, inconvenient truths forgotten, while other events are amplified, polished, even exaggerated to serve a purpose. Just as the individual edits to survive, societies edit to maintain unity, pride, and direction. And so, memory becomes power. Whoever controls the story controls the group. Leaders, writers, teachers, and media all shape collective memory, deciding what will be remembered and what will fade. A statue removed, a textbook revised, a ritual abandoned, all ripple into the shared sense of self. Yet collective memory also offers resilience. When disasters strike, when generations pass, the shared remembering keeps culture alive. A song sung, a story retold, a ritual preserved. These are acts of resistance against oblivion. They say, "We were here, we remain." To understand collective memory is to see that identity is never solitary. You are not just the sum of your own memories, you are also the echo of your people's, the inheritor of their stories. And in telling, Those stories, in keeping them alive, you ensure that the web of memory extends beyond you, weaving a fabric that endures long after individual minds fade. Every moment that brushes past you, every sound, every image, every fleeting sensation, arrives, first as raw data, but not all of it becomes memory. Most slips away, unnoticed, like water through fingers. The brain is a gatekeeper, selective, deciding what passes through into the deeper vaults of recall. This process, this filtering and engraving, is called encoding. Encoding begins with attention. The eyes may see, the ears may hear, but unless the mind attends, the experience never leaves a trace. You may pass 100 faces on a street, yet recall none, because your gaze was elsewhere. But let one face smile, let it spark emotion, and, suddenly, neurons fire, pathways light, and the event is marked for keeping. From here, the hippocampus steps in. Think of it as a librarian who receives fragments. The shape of a face, the sound of laughter, the scent of rain on the street. Each piece is sent to a different shelf. The visual cortex holds the image, the auditory cortex the sound, the olfactory system the smell. The hippocampus does not store the memory itself. It weaves the index, linking fragments so they can be reassembled later into a single story. But not all encoding is equal. Repetition strengthens the trace, carving grooves deeper into the brain's circuitry. Emotion supercharges it, flooding the system with chemicals that make the moment harder to erase. Novelty also plays a role. The brain is wired to remember what is unusual, what breaks the pattern, for novelty may mean opportunity or danger. Encoding is fragile at first. A fresh memory is like wet clay, easily reshaped or destroyed. Sleep hardens it, solidifying the trace through a mysterious process called consolidation. This is why rest is essential, not just for recovery, but for memory itself. During dreams, the brain replays, rehearses, and strengthens what it deems important, engraving the day's impressions into something more lasting. Failures of encoding explain much of what we call forgetting. You never truly lost the memory of the name you just heard. You never encoded it deeply to begin with. Distraction, divided attention, lack of emotion, all weaken the signal, leaving the clay too soft to hold its form. To master memory, then, is to master encoding, to give attention fully, to tie learning to emotion, to repeat and rehearse, to honor sleep. These simple acts are the locks and keys of recall. They transform fleeting impressions into architecture that endures. Nations have rewritten their past to forge unity, to conceal wounds, to glorify power. Families, too, pass down certain stories while letting others vanish, shaping identity through selective recall. In this sense, collective memory is a mirror of the brain itself. It prunes and reshapes. It is never fixed, always fluid, always contested. What we call history books are only fragments, polished and chosen, while countless truths lie forgotten in the shadows. But there is beauty here as well. Collective memory gives us continuity, grounding us in something larger than ourselves. It gives us the comfort of belonging, the strength of shared struggle, the inspiration of shared triumph. When you hear an anthem, see a flag, walk through an old city street, you feel memory not just of your own life, but of lives long gone, echoing within you. Unlocking the brain's potential, then, is not only about the personal mind, but about seeing how it connects with the minds of others. You are not an isolated archive. You are a node in a living network of memory that stretches across time. Your memories are braided into those of your family, your culture, your species. And in this braiding lies something profound: immortality. For even when individual memory fades, the collective remembers. Who are you? It is the simplest question, yet the hardest to answer. Strip away possessions, titles, appearances, and what remains? The answer, quietly, is memory. You are the stories your brain has chosen to keep. You are the shape carved by experience, the echo of what you remember, and even the weight of what you have forgotten. Identity is not a static label, but a living construction. It is the continuity you feel between the child you once were and the person you are now. Without memory, that thread frays. Imagine waking with no recollection of yesterday. Your body remains, your abilities remain, but the self, the narrative that says, "This is me," would dissolve. Memory is not just a record, it is the glue that binds moments into a coherent self. Consider those who suffer amnesia. When memory shatters, identity flickers. They may look into the mirror and see a stranger. They may speak words they once knew, yet not recognize the life those words belong to. Without memory, the I becomes unstable, unmoored. This reveals the truth. Who you are is not carved in stone, but woven in time, sustained by the act of remembering. But memory's role in identity is not only about continuity, it is also about meaning. We edit our memories, highlight some, dim others, until they tell a story we can live with. Two people may live through the same event, yet their memories differ because each has chosen which threads to pull into their tapestry of self. You are not the raw truth of your past. You are the interpretation of it. And memory is selective, not just by accident, but by necessity. You cannot carry everything, so your brain chooses the moments that define you. Triumphs, traumas, turning points. This selection becomes your mythology. You say, "I am the one who survived that hardship. I am the one who learned from that failure. I am the one who loved, who lost, who found meaning again." In this way, memory becomes identity sculpted into narrative. Even forgetting plays a role. To outgrow is to release certain memories, to let them fade so new identities can emerge. You are not the same self you were 10 years ago, not because your body changed, but because the memories you emphasize have changed. To unlock your brain's full potential is to see that identity is not a prison of the past, but a story you are free to retell. You are, at every moment, the author of your own self, and the ink you write with is memory. It may seem paradoxical. Memory, by definition, belongs to the past. Yet in truth, it is the foundation of the future. Without memory, there is no imagination, no planning, no vision of what has yet to come. Memory is not only a record, it is rehearsal, a stage on which the brain projects what might happen next. When you imagine tomorrow, you are not conjuring something entirely new. You are taking fragments of yesterday, faces, places, sensations, and rearranging them. The hippocampus, the same structure that retrieves the past, also constructs the future. It stitches together memory traces, simulating outcomes, giving you a way to walk paths before you ever step onto them. To remember is to prepare. To forget is to be trapped in the eternal now. Consider a chess player visualizing moves. They recall countless games, patterns of attack and defense. Yet as they look at the board, they are not replaying the past. They are bending memory forward, predicting what may come. Or think of a traveler, imagining a city they have never visited. They piece together fragments of memory, images of streets, the sound of languages, the smell of food, and from this collage, a future vision is born. Even hope and fear are sculpted from memory. You hope because you remember joy. You fear because you remember pain. The unknown future is given shape and meaning by the remembered past. Strip memory away, and the future collapses into a blank horizon, impossible to navigate. This connection explains why trauma reshapes destiny. Painful memories do not only haunt the past, they project themselves forward, shaping expectations, altering choices. Similarly, cherished memories light paths ahead, encouraging repetition of joy, guiding decisions toward meaning. The brain carries its past into every vision of tomorrow. Unlocking the brain's potential, then, means recognizing this secret. Memory is not backward-looking, it is forward-building. Each recollection is a tool for constructing possibilities, for rehearsing lives not yet lived. To tend to memory with care is to tend to the very fabric of your future. You are not bound by memory, you are propelled by it. The past does not chain you, it equips you. Every dream, every plan, every vision you carry into tomorrow is made of yesterday's fragments, reimagined in new light. The brain remembers not simply to hold the past, but to give you the power to invent the future. Memory and emotion are inseparable twins. Strip the feeling away from a memory, and it fades into trivia. Wrap a moment in strong emotion, and it becomes unforgettable. Your brain does not remember everything equally. It remembers what mattered to your heart. This happens because of the amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure deep within the brain. The amygdala acts as an emotional amplifier. When an event carries strong feeling, joy, fear, grief, wonder, the amygdala sends signals that boost the storage of that memory. Neurochemicals surge, strengthening synaptic connections, etching the moment more deeply. This is why you remember exactly where you were during moments of shock, of triumph, of heartbreak. The emotion acts like fire, searing the memory into place. But emotion is not only about permanence, it is also about meaning. A childhood home is remembered not for its architecture, but for the laughter, warmth, or pain that filled its rooms. A song is cherished not for its notes, but for the way it made you feel, for the season of life it carried with it. Without emotion, memory is sterile. With emotion, it becomes alive. This fusion also explains why memories can haunt. Traumatic events, bound tightly with overwhelming fear, are stored with unusual intensity. They do not fade easily. They intrude, replaying themselves unbidden, as if the brain refuses to let them go. Here, memory becomes not a gentle archive, but a relentless echo. And yet, even these memories can be reshaped. With therapy, with new emotional experiences, the same memory can be reinterpreted, its weight softened, its sting eased. On the brighter side, positive emotions can transform memory into a wellspring of resilience. Recalling joy, love, and triumph can strengthen you in present struggles. Memory, infused with hope, becomes a reminder of your capacity to endure, to grow, to find light again. To unlock your brain's full potential is to recognize that memory is not just cognitive, it is emotional. You are not a machine collecting data. You are a soul collecting meaning. Every memory you hold close is tethered by feeling, and every feeling you embrace becomes a future memory in the making. Thus, memory and emotion do not merely coexist, they define one another. The past is remembered not as it happened, but as it felt. And in the end, that feeling becomes the truth by which we live. And so, we arrive at the quiet edge of tonight's journey. We have wandered through the intricate cities of the brain, traced the pathways of thought, memory, and imagination, and glimpsed the hidden powers that rest within us all. What we discovered is simple, yet profound. Your mind is not fixed. It is alive, fluid, unfolding, always capable of becoming more than it was yesterday. Unlocking your brain's full potential is not about chasing perfection or holding every detail of the past. It is about balance, the remembering and the forgetting, the logic and the emotion, the discipline and the dream. It is about learning how memory gives shape to identity, how imagination bends the past into the future, and how every thought you choose to nurture plants the seeds of who you will become. So as you close your eyes tonight, let your mind rest. Trust its hidden wisdom, that while you sleep, it will prune, reshape, and strengthen the pathways that carry you forward. Know that each moment of silence, each breath of stillness, is part of this unfolding potential. You are not trapped by who you were. You are not limited by what you know. You are an endless work of becoming. A mind at peace, a mind in motion, a mind capable of wonders still unseen. This is mind peace. Sleep well, dream deeply, and awaken to the quiet strength of your own infinite mind.